Today, a broken bone is rarely a catastrophe. You slip on ice, feel the sharp snap, and within hours you're in an emergency room where x-rays reveal the damage, doctors realign the fracture, and a lightweight fiberglass cast holds everything in place. Weeks or months later, the bone knits together stronger than before. You complain about the itch, the inconvenience, but you expect to walk again, to run again, to live without permanent disability. It has not always been so. For most of human existence, a serious fracture was a brush with death, yet our ancestors did not simply accept that fate. They found ways to mend what was broken, and in doing so, they revealed something profound about what it means to be human. Imagine for a moment, the world before medicine had a name. Our earliest ancestors lived in small bands on the African savanna and later across the varied landscapes of Europe and Asia. Life was constant motion, hunting large game, gathering food, fleeing predators. A fall from a tree, a kick from an antelope, or the glancing blow of a stone tool could shatter a bone. Without intervention, the jagged ends would grind against each other. Muscles would pull the fragments out of alignment. Swelling would cut off blood flow. Infection would almost certainly follow. Many would have died from shock, blood loss, or sepsis. Those who survived would often remain crippled, unable to hunt or travel with the group. In a world where every member had to contribute, such an injury could doom not just the individual, but the entire band. Yet skeletal evidence tells a different story. Neanderthal remains from tens of thousands of years ago show healed fractures, clavicles, femurs, skulls that had realigned remarkably well. One individual survived a severe arm injury and lived with it for years. Another bore the marks of multiple healed traumas. These were not lucky breaks. They suggest deliberate care, rest, support, and the willingness of others to share food and protection while the injured healed. A healed femur, in particular, has long been cited as possible evidence of the first stirrings of civilization itself, the moment when a community chose compassion over convenience. The first deliberate attempts to stabilize broken bones likely emerged from simple observation. Humans have always watched animals. An injured wolf or deer will instinctively favor the limb, lying still for long periods. Our ancestors noticed this and began to imitate it. They would bind a broken arm or leg with whatever was at hand, strips of animal hide, flexible branches, or broad leaves. Over time, they refined the idea. A straight piece of wood or bark placed alongside the limb could act as a primitive splint, preventing the worst movement. Soft padding, moss, grass, or fur, cushioned the skin. Bindings held it firm. This was not sophisticated surgery, but it was engineering born of necessity. By keeping the broken ends relatively aligned and immobile, the body's own remarkable capacity for repair could take over. Bones, we now know, are living tissue. When fractured, they trigger a cascade of inflammation, soft callus formation, hard callus, and eventual remodeling. Ancient humans did not understand the biology, but they understood the outcome. Rest plus stability often produced a usable limb. The earliest clear archaeological evidence of purposeful splinting comes from ancient Egypt around 5,000 years ago. In tombs at Naga Ed-Dur, excavators discovered mummies with splinted fractures. One forearm and one thigh bone had been carefully supported with wooden splints wrapped in linen and reinforced with grass or palm fibers. These were not hasty battlefield fixes. The care with which they were applied suggests a developed practice. Egyptian physicians, working within a sophisticated medical tradition, documented treatments in papyri. They understood the importance of reducing the fracture, gently pulling the limb to realign the bones before immobilization. For the Egyptians, healing broken bones was both practical and spiritual. The body was a vessel for the Ka, the life force. Preserving its integrity mattered for this life and the next. Their splints combined local materials with skill. Acacia bark for its strength, linen bandages sometimes stiffened with resins or egg white. They treated open fractures cautiously, recognizing the danger of infection, though their success rate against it was limited by the absence of antibiotics. From the banks of the Nile, the practice spread and evolved across the ancient world. In India, healers used bamboo splints, prized for their natural flexibility and lightness. Bamboo conformed better to the limb's contours and allowed some movement while still providing support, an early insight into the balance between rigidity and function. In classical Greece, the art of bone setting reached a new level of systematic thought. Hippocrates, writing in the 5th and 4th centuries BCE, left detailed treatises on fractures and on joints. He emphasized careful diagnosis, reduction under traction, and proper bandaging. Greek physicians used the Hippocratic bench or scamnum, a wooden apparatus for applying controlled extension to realign difficult fractures, particularly of the femur. They warned against overly tight bindings that could cause gangrene, and they understood that compound fractures where bone pierces the skin carried far higher risk. Hippocrates advocated leaving certain fractures to heal with minimal interference if alignment was good, trusting nature's work. This pragmatic humility was revolutionary. Medicine, he taught, should work with the body's processes rather than against them. His students and successors carried these methods across the Hellenistic world. The Romans absorbed and expanded Greek knowledge. Military surgeons, dealing with constant battlefield trauma, became particularly skilled. They developed specialized instruments and techniques for setting bones amid the chaos of legions on the march. Roman physicians like Galen further refined traction methods and studied the anatomy of healing. Splints of wood, leather, and even metal appeared in more complex cases. Yet for most people throughout antiquity and into the medieval period, treatment remained in the hands of local bone setters, practical healers who combined inherited techniques with experience. These were often not elite doctors, but craftsmen, midwives, or village elders who knew how to align a limb by feel, apply a splint of ash or elder wood, and bind it securely. In medieval Europe, recipes mixed herbal poultices with mechanical support. Ash wood was favored for its toughness and slight flexibility. Bandages were soaked in mixtures meant to reduce swelling and prevent infection, though results varied. One challenge persisted for millennia: keeping the fracture immobilized long enough without causing pressure sores or muscle wasting. Solutions evolved slowly. Some healers elevated the limb or used slings. Others constructed cradle-like boxes to support a splinted leg in bed. The goal was always the same: give the bone time to bridge the gap. By the Middle Ages and Renaissance, European surgeons were experimenting with more rigid dressings. Plaster-like mixtures occasionally appeared, foreshadowing the modern cast. But it was not until the 19th century that the breakthrough came. Dutch military surgeon Anthonius Matthijssen and others perfected plaster of Paris bandages. Light, moldable, and strong when dry. Suddenly, immobilization became more reliable and comfortable. Combined with better understanding of antisepsis thanks to Leicester and Pasteur, survival rates soared. X-rays, introduced at the end of the 19th century, allowed doctors to see exactly what they were treating. Internal fixation with plates, screws, and later rods transformed outcomes for complex fractures. Yet even today, the fundamental principles remain those discovered by our distant ancestors: reduce, immobilize, and allow nature to do the mending. The story of healing broken bones is ultimately a story of human connection. Every healed fracture in the archaeological record implies someone else: family, friends, community, provided food, water, protection, and care during weeks or months of vulnerability. A single individual with a shattered leg could not hunt, gather, or flee danger. Their survival depended on others choosing to slow down, to share scarce resources, to believe recovery was possible. In that choice lies the deep origin of ethics, of society itself. We carry that legacy in our bodies. When you break a bone today, the cast or surgical hardware is merely the latest chapter in a technique refined over tens of thousands of years. The ache you feel during recovery echoes the pain felt by a Neanderthal hunter, an Egyptian farmer, a Greek soldier, and a medieval peasant. The relief when you first put weight on the healed limb is the same satisfaction they knew. The next time you watch a child learn to walk again after a fracture, or you remove your own cast to reveal pale but whole skin beneath, pause for a moment. You are participating in one of humanity's oldest acts of resilience and compassion. A broken bone, properly tended, does not merely heal. It reminds us that we were never meant to face the hardest parts of life alone. And in that shared struggle to mend what is broken, we find the quiet, enduring strength that has carried our species forward since the very beginning.